Hi, this is BB Ukraine Analytics, the channel of top news, analytics and insights from Ukraine and about Ukraine. And my name, as you already know, is Bogdan Butkevych. I'm a Ukrainian journalist and vlogger.
Hi, and I'm Olena Vostrova, a Ukrainian vlogger. And here we tell you the truth about Ukraine and Ukrainians without censorship and propaganda. So subscribe for our channel if you want to know the insider information about what's really going on here in Ukraine, so to say, from the inside.
So here we go, the top news of this week.
This week was marked by two trends in Ukraine. On the one hand, the increasingly effective work of the armed forces of Ukraine to destroy Russia's military logistics. On the other hand, Russia's attempts to blackmail the world and Ukraine by withdrawing from the grain deal.
So it all started with an attack by naval drones on the Crimean Bridge overnight on July 17. The purpose is obviously military. The vast majority of Russian military supplies to the southern front go by the trucks that go right across the Crimean Bridge.
And now, when there is only one road line working with interruptions, it is a significant success of the Ukrainian troops. No matter how many times Russians assured that after last year's blow of the bridge in October, it is now almost the most protected object in Russia, their air defense and ships could not do anything with the Ukrainian naval drones.
Putin, for whom this bridge and Crimea as whole are the most important symbols, once again received a slap in the face. This attack is clearly related to the end of the so-called grain deal.
After all, Ukraine perfectly understood that Russia would not continue it, so the Ukrainian authorities clearly decided to demonstrate Russia's weakness.
It was at that moment when Moscow decided to arrange another blackmail and escalation. After all, immediately after the attack on the bridge, Russia launched powerful missile attacks on the port buildings and infrastructure of the Black Sea ports of Ukraine for several nights in a row.
It is obvious that these strikes were prepared in advance and were not a response to the attack of the Crimea Bridge. Ukraine managed to beat Russia in this case.
And now about the grain deal, Russia already has very few trump cards for blackmail and increasing the degree of escalation. The most important trump card is nuclear weapons and the provocations at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant.
However, in this matter, Moscow received strong signals from both the West and China. Therefore, Putin is not taking any risks here. And one more and last trump card was precisely the grain deal.
The Kremlin decided that it was an opportune moment for blackmail. After all, this grain deal is a source of constant criticism of the authorities in Russia itself. They say that Kremlin is showing its weakness.
Well, Russia has not refused from its idea to organize massive famine in the world, and Ukraine should not be allowed to export its agricultural products and suffocate them in this way. Plus, Russia wants to replace Ukrainian grain on the market with its own and earn money for its increasingly crippled state budget due to sanctions.
Therefore, Russia decided this time to try to get out of the deal, at least for a certain period. In this way, Putin wants to show what a cool macho he is and raise his image after the Prigozhin rebellion.
Plus, the Kremlin wants to negotiate the lifting of some of the sanctions in order to make money from the sale of grain from the new crop, including grain stolen from Ukrainian occupied territories.
At the same time, it is necessary to understand that Ukraine was and is going to ignore Russia's threats. Moreover, the situation in the Black Sea over the last year is such that Russian ships are afraid of going out of the sea in the direction of Ukraine and are only able to fire missiles from afar and safe distances.
Therefore, Russia is unable to physically prevent the movement of ships. Therefore, Moscow decided to inflict maximum damage on the port infrastructure, so nothing could be loaded there and that ship owners were afraid of going Ukrainian ports.
As soon as the deal expired on July 17, the Russian army began launching missile strikes on Odesa, Chornomorsk and Mykolaiv, on ports and elevators. That was a manifestation of Putin's position of the grain deal. The attacks were carried out specifically at the ports and elevators, as I said, of the Odesa, Chornomorsk and Mykolaiv.
It is as if they say, "We will not allow the grain deal to exist without us. This is how we will attack Ukrainian ports if they do not come to an agreement with us. No one, not even the most adventurous ship owner, will agree to take his ships to Ukraine under such shelling." Because it will come something like this, and at night the Ha-22 will fly nearby, and what will happen next? Or with the elevator where the grain for this ship lies? A simple tactical calculation. However, strategically, it is absolutely wrong.
At the same time, the Russians killed and wounded dozens of people in Odesa and Mykolaiv during these strikes. This is a standard terrorist tactic of Moscow, where civilians are targets as anything else.
After all, this blackmail hits the interest of Turkey and its leader Erdogan. The grain deal was very profitable for the Turks, who took a considerable margin for Istanbul. Turkey was the place of transshipment of grain, and it acted as a guarantor of this deal.
During the year of this deal, Turkey made huge money from it. Taking into consideration the very poor state of the Turkish economy, this money is very important, and no one wants to lose them. That is why Erdogan has said many times that the deal should be extended. Therefore, these attacks on Ukrainian ports are a direct hint to Turkish leader Erdogan.
It's like Russia says, if you want to continue making money from Ukrainian grain, help us. Lift the sanctions from Rossельхозbank, through which we will scroll black money to the West.
In response, Ukraine stated it is not going to stop the movement of ships and is ready to ensure under state guarantees the ships that dare to go to Ukrainian ports. Kyiv even offered Turkey to extend the deal without taking into account Russia's position.
Russia then decided to raise the stakes even further when the Russian Ministry of Defense announced that starting with July 21, it would consider any ship entering Ukrainian ports as military target.
And in response, the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense made a mirror statement that will consider as a military target any ship that will pass through the Kerch Strait between Crimea and Russia, and in general all ships that will go towards Russian Black Sea ports. Sinking civilian vessels is considered to be a rude violation of all possible conventions. But what should we do in this situation?
Therefore, it is unlikely that Russia will dare to do this, especially considering that Putin is trying to enlist the support of African countries who are already dissatisfied with how much grain was destroyed in Ukrainian ports.
For example, Egypt has already expressed in its sharp, dissatisfaction with Russia's actions and wants to continue purchasing Ukrainian grain.
Ukraine doesn't want to be accused of the same crimes that Russia is already committing. However, strikes by Ukrainian forces on Russian seaports should not be ruled out. And as a response to the strikes on Ukrainian ports, and to remind Russia that it is also in a very vulnerable position.
After all, most of the Russian oil is transshipped through the Black Sea, and the attack, for example, of oil terminals in Novorossiysk will have much more catastrophic consequences for Russia than, for example, certain easy-to-export Ukrainian agricultural products by sea.
After all, Ukrainian grain, though in smaller quantities, can be exported through Europe by rail or through the Danube and the Black Sea ports of Bulgaria and Romania, whereas Russian oil has no other way to Europe.
Plus, the huge 2021 crop and the 2022 crop have already almost been shipped out, whereas the 2023 harvest will be much smaller because of the war, and it is just beginning to be collected. Therefore, Ukraine, may well not give in to the Russians' blackmail for several weeks and try to respond with blows to blows.
If we predict the development of events, Putin will soon go to Turkey, if he takes the risk, of course, and go to a NATO country that, although has not signed the Rome Statute, but is still an ally of the United States.
Or more likely, Putin will have a telephone conversation with Erdogan, who with a high degree of probability will force Putin to continue the grain deal. After all, Turkey is an extremely important country for Russia. This is the biggest smuggling hub for Rushists, through which everything goes. Everything. Grain imports, withdrawal of money, gas, tourists,
etc., etc. So if Turkey closes this hub, as well as the straits for Russian ships, Moscow will face instant collapse.
Plus, we should not forget that the supply of the Russian group in Syria is also carried out by ships through the Bosphorus and the Dardanelles. And with a flick of his finger, Erdogan can take several thousand of Russian soldiers there like a hostage at the Khmeimim base at the Syria.
Therefore, Turkey will definitely persuade Russia. The only question is the price.
After all this time, Moscow will continue terrorist attacks on the Ukrainian ports to cause as much damage as possible to Ukraine and destroy as much grain as possible, so that even when the deal works again, to cause as much damage as possible to Ukraine.
At the same time, the West directly doesn't want to bring its ships to the Black Sea and help Ukraine with a convoy of ships.
Therefore, for Turkey, this situation is really cool. Turkey perfectly understands the advantage of its situation when it earns money from Russia and at the same time has a chance to advance on the path of European integration and NATO. Therefore, most likely the grain deal will be extended in August and the war will continue. And this, as sooner the world realizes that only the defeat of Russia can end it, the sooner it will end.
That's all for today. Please write your comments and questions right under this video.
Give us your like and subscribe for our channel. The channel, if you know, the top news, analytics and insights from Ukraine and about Ukraine.
Here we give you Ukrainian worldview for the world. So subscribe for our channel if you want to know what's really going on here in Ukraine from the inside. Let us be your Ukrainian insiders.
See you.
Papa.